The primary union tied to the Los Angeles anti-ICE riots hired a child molester to top their San Francisco chapter roll. We sat down with Hudson Crozier, formerly of the Daily Signal, now with the Daily Caller News Foundation, to discuss this exclusive story. I'm Tony Kinnett of the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast, syndicated nationally at 7 p.m. Eastern. It is Friday, June 20th, 2025. This is the Daily Signal's top news in 10. Every once in a while, you see a news headline that is just freaking bonkers. This is one of them. Exclusive from the Daily Caller News Foundation. Union tied to anti-ICE riots hired child molester to top local chapter roll. I mean, come on. So we got the guy who wrote it. We're going to ask him about what on earth this ulcer of a headline is all about. We're talking about Hudson Crozier over from the Daily Caller News Foundation. Dude, how are you doing after writing something like this?
Doing fine. I mean, it did well. A lot of people liked it and read it, or maybe not liked is not the right word, but a lot of people were interested. So that's the goal.
I was getting ready to say that's one of the things that had us reach out and book the interview. So you say that this lady named Noelia Linares, a business agent at the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union. Hell, that's that David Huerta guy that got arrested that Maxine Waters was, shaking her jowls at, essentially pleaded no contest in 2018 to sex crimes involving a minor. Lovely. Tell us a little bit about the situation here.
Right. So first, you should probably understand why SEIU is a big deal right now, because they were one of the groups that sparked the protests in LA that devolved into chaos and rioting and arrests and everything. And that was when the SEIU California chapter saw its president get arrested, David Huerta, like you mentioned, because he was allegedly trying to obstruct ICE agents with a crowd of people. And then the SEIU...
A very colorful way of saying what looks like dry humping a federal vehicle, but yes.
Right. And so his chapter, the SEIU California chapter, and a bunch of left-wing groups started this basically coordinated social media outrage campaign to say, ICE is kidnapping people. They just arrested this local labor union leader, and you need to come to this federal building later this afternoon and we'll start protesting. That was Friday. So they were blasting those posts out all day in this very coordinated fashion. Then hundreds of people showed up to that federal building, and little by little things just started to go haywire and stuff was being thrown. And then the rest is history. And then the rest is history. And LA has dealt with that for a solid week. So now to this specific story, the SEIU Local 87 chapter is one of the smaller chapters in there. And they've been backing these protests and very much against the deportation operations and all that. Turns out I got some court documents showing that their business agent, which means somebody who can engage in collective bargaining and things like that, like a leading role at the Local 87 chapter of SEIU, was arrested in 2017 and charged with molesting as many or having inappropriate relations. I'll use the precise legal terms with something like 4 alleged victims.
My God.
Yeah, at a high school where she was teaching at the time.
Oh, there it is. Of course. I didn't even see the I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to point out how much of the ICE raids in Los Angeles and how much of the counter protests, why do they always, and counter riots, I should say, why do they always seem to be filled with individuals who have had relations with minors and things like this? I was thinking about, of course, one of our colleagues, Julio Rosas, phenomenal reporter over at The Blaze. He's been on the ground in LA, and he was being yelled at, the Border Patrol being yelled at on their way to a Home Depot saying, oh, there's no problem. It's just like hardworking young guys over at Home Depot, where they promptly went and arrested a child molester. Now here we are yet again. I'm so sick of the story. Fire up the wood chipper for all convicted sex offenders, especially regarding minors. This is just, it's consistent. It's disgusting. It's consistently disgusting.
Well, I have no idea about anything related to Linares' citizenship status, but yes, a lot of the illegal migrants that have been getting arrested by ICE are charged or convicted of very heinous things. Our immigration reporter, Jason
right. I'm not questioning their
Yeah.
immigration status, anything like that. I'm just saying that this particular side of these protests in general, these riots in general, do seem to have a lot of individuals who have diddled children. And I'm just pointing out that this is a very serious epidemic that we found in political society in total over the last couple of decades. That is probably just because we're documenting it more. And look, I've read your writings since you were back working with the Daily Signal. I've never known you to write inflammatory headlines just to bag readers. So when I saw this, I thought this actually has to be pretty fleshed out. And I want to read this one particular piece, okay? Prosecutors dropped 6 of Linares' charges in exchange for her pleading no contest to 2 others in 2018, according to court records. The former school employee was convicted of sexual penetration by foreign object, a felony, and child molesting, a misdemeanor, serving 1 year in jail and nearly 3 years of probation until it was terminated in May of 21. Now, there is a kind of a social expectation that whenever you hear a story about a female working in a school district and she is sleeping with students, that it's like a high school English teacher or something, and she's like sleeping with a couple of guys on the football team, and yeah, it's like technically statutory rape or whatever, but I mean, yeah, it's not as bad. I'm sorry, but the crimes that I just listed do not in fact fit that kind of common social idea that often pops into a lot of people's heads, which of course is disgusting anyway. But this is not just a case of you slept with a 17-year-old. I mean, good Lord, with a foreign object? What is wrong with people?
Yeah, I don't really care to know what the foreign object is.
I don't want to know.
Pass.
I'm glad you left that detail out of the article.
Yeah, well, clearly none of this, I mean, another thing that sort of goes against typical expectations here is the sex offender typically does not end up with a cushy union job or much of a job at all that's worth doing. But within 1 year of that probation ending, or about 1 year, that is when SEIU hired her to be the business agent of this local chapter. So pretty sweet deal.
Hey, I gotta tell you, there is a lot of nonsense that currently pervades jobs that individuals are getting, times that they're running back and forth to different positions. I mean, you've got, of course, the case of Weiner heading over to New York to try to run for office, and The View even called him out on that. It's just consistent after consistent scandal that I'm watching, that every time I see then the Democrats in Congress come out in front of the country and claim that, oh, this is actually just the Trump administration performing Kristallnacht against the trade unionists and the Jews, which is insane, an insane thing to claim. That when you look at the individuals comprising these particular protests and riots, when you look at some of the individuals comprising the individuals that ICE are arresting, I'm not seeing the innocent, like young men and women rounded up by the Nazi regime that they are claiming to be. And it's really gross to make that kind of a comparison.
Well, one of the groups behind stoking the outrage and the protests in LA doesn't really care to even try to paint itself as law-abiding or innocent in the way that you and I would think. It's called Union del Barrio. This was in another piece I wrote recently, where one of their speakers was out there giving this kind of semi-press conference in the middle of the protest and saying, I'm gonna pull it up just so that I am not misquoting him in any way or misrepresenting. He says, if we organize, he's talking about ICE agents, if we organize, we can kick their asses out of every single ghetto, every single barrio, anywhere where our people are. And then he gives this whole other spiel. Who gives a damn about legality when these people have their boot to our neck, talking about like illegal immigrants. And then he ends it by saying, we have to, quote, defend our families by whatever means necessary. And in this video that I dug up, there's a bunch of cheers after he says that. Now, it should be noted that it is the reason some people have been getting arrested at immigration raids, aside from immigration status, is because it is illegal to obstruct ICE operations. But some of these people don't care.
Are you telling me that if someone is trying to perform their job under a federal or in this case, just a warrant, maybe it's a local warrant, as we've seen some local warrants, maybe it's a state level warrant, maybe it's a federal level warrant. Judges have signed off on these, and then the feds are going in and performing their job. And if I stand in front waving a rainbow colored Mexican flag, and I start chanting, of course, I'm wearing my keffiyeh as well, because, you got to get the Omni clause all going there. And I chant how important it is, to stand in front and to stand up and obstruct justice. Are you telling me that's not particularly legal to obstruct federal officers? I'm shocked, Hudson. I mean, look at the shock on my face. Can you not tell how shocked I am that you can't obstruct justice? At some point, I'm going to have to ask you for the articles that you've written in the past, for you to just kind of summarize the stupidness, and I just mean the complete sheer idiocy of individuals committing crimes that are so obviously crimes. People are shocked that they're getting arrested for things that you could ask a common 4-year-old on the street who's never heard anything about civics. They would tell you, yeah, that's probably against the law. Somehow people like those we've seen in Los Angeles have no clear concept. Oh, I mean, I guess that an individual who diddled kids probably wouldn't have a really good grip on the law in the first place.
Right. Well, that's definitely the way some conservatives feel, especially after the arrest of Padilla. I remember hearing someone say that it's like Democrats, since they can't actually prove that Trump has set up some kind of police state, they just have to go and do these things that obviously seem like crimes and would get anyone arrested, like busting into a press conference. And I'm not saying that's what I think. But
right. No, I agree. That is, in fact, I have said such. And again, I'm not trying to push you, who are acting objectively in your reports from the DCNF, to get into stuff. But it does remind me of the meme in which the individual is sitting face up in a swimming pool that's about 2 feet deep, and they're kind of curled up and they're crying, and they're like, "Oh, I'm drowning," and then like the camera zooms out and like, they are not drowning. They're sitting on the bottom of the pool. The water's not up over their neck or their head. That's what a lot of the protests appear like to me. Oh, this is a police
also,
state.
I totally messed up the name. It was Brad Lander, not whatever I said. But yeah.
Oh, got you. Brad Lander. Yeah. Well, I mean, Brad Lander and Padilla have both been detained for doing things that are not necessarily legal. So just, and again, and after the incidents we saw of Mark Lamont Hill getting pepper sprayed because a woman got too close to the stage when he was speaking, and given the anti-ICE, anti-DHS sentiment around the country, it makes a lot of sense that perhaps Secret Service would not like someone not wearing proper security identification, or someone obstructing agents from taking an individual away they had a warrant for. Yeah, that kind of stuff might warrant a little bit of temporary detainment. So Hudson Crozier, really appreciate it as always. An excellent writer over at the Daily Caller News Foundation. Thanks again for hopping on.
Thanks for having me.
You can find the link to Hudson's article down in the description, as well as a link to subscribe to the Tony Kinnett Cast, where you can join us at 7 p.m. Eastern each weeknight for a roundup of the day's news and nonsense. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's top news in more like 13. Take care.